Hello and welcome to our online students that are live with us tonight. And for all of you that are watching this on the recorded version, in order to prepare for the test, welcome as well. My name is Rick Roller, and I'll be your game show host this evening as we go through some brokerage and property management type topics. And with us tonight is also running the technical side of things, Mr. Dan Naylor, who is the head kahuna at the Institute of Real Estate. And we really appreciate you being here. And I know some of you have found us on the internet and you're not really registered with the school. That's okay. We're happy to have you. We have a lot of valuable information which can be very helpful for you as you get through the exam. Now, these reviews that we do every other Tuesday, and of course, they're available for rebroadcast at any time that's convenient to you, are primarily put together by examining exam type questions. So rather than just lecturing to you and telling you all the different things that you may have read already or have watched in other videos where they're teaching a class, we actually review questions and then talk a little bit about the strategy on how to get through the exam, as well as topics that we are dang sure you're going to see again. And these reviews will be very helpful for you. So welcome tonight. I think you're going to find it very valuable and helpful for you as you sit in front of a computer not too far in the future and try to get that good, 70 or 80%, whichever you need, to get your Utah real estate exam. So here we go. Let's start right off with question number one. Okay, so when a brokerage shuts down, now they're closing their doors. Okay, so when a brokerage shuts down and no longer continues business, either due to the broker leaving or a corporate decision, what happens to the transaction records? Now, the state is very meticulous in making sure that records are kept, and also they're kept for their minimum requirement time, which is something you need to know for the test. So looking this over, what happens to the transaction records if the brokerage is ceased to do business? Okay, and A says a broker must notify the division of the real estate where the records will be kept within 10 days. Now, 10 days is an important number of days because a lot of the requirements from the division hinge on 10 days. So hang on to that one. That's kind of warm and fuzzy. B, the transaction records must be turned over to the division. The division is not going to keep your records. That's your responsibility. And even if you close shop, like this particular broker is doing, you still need to keep those records for their time period. C, the agents each are required to store their own transaction records. We strongly recommend, as experienced real estate agents, I'm working on about 45 years now, and is that you keep your own records always, but it's not a requirement by the division. The requirement is that the broker keep the records, but you really need to keep your own records. I've had people call 8-9 years later and say, hey, do you got a copy of those, or do you know about this or that or whatever, or we've got some inheritance things we need to work out, or other things they needed to work out. So just keep your records. The division says you have to keep them for 3 full calendar years following the year of the transaction, but you might want to keep them in perpetuity. And D, the records for the defunct company are no longer needed. No, that's not true. You've got that 3-year requirement. Now, that the 3-year requirement is 3 full calendar years following the year of the transaction. So if these transactions were at the end of a year, like the last quarter, be it November, December, or whatever, then you really only keep them for 3 years and a couple of months. But if you've fallen over into past New Year's, so let's say it's January, February, or whatever, you're almost going to have to keep those for 4 years, almost. It's 3 full calendar years following the year of the transaction. So looking these over, the correct answer is A. The broker must notify the division of real estate and where the records will be kept within 10 days. And they're real meticulous about their time frames, so don't push those. For those of you that have a company or are thinking about closing it someday, You'll need to know that. Let's go to question number 2, please. By the way, if you can with the chat version in Zoom, you can get a hold of us, ask questions, and Dan will sometimes even put your voice through if you ask him to, or if you'd like that. Number 2 says, when a brokerage closes, records must be kept available for, I already told you, 3 days, okay, or 3 years, excuse me, 3 years following the year that the transaction took place. And now, obviously, that is answer C. So now, why did I do that? Well, because when you're taking a test, what will happen? This will happen to you. Sometimes you'll see a question and you'll answer it, and you'll feel pretty good about it. But then as you work through the test, there's another question which answers the other question. So if you want to scroll back a little bit and kind of double check and make sure you check the right answer, or it will spark something in your memory, and then you'll realize what the right answer was, and maybe that needed correction. So, but it's 3 full calendar years following the year of the transaction. Boy, he keeps parroting that out. Number 3. Number 3 says that P is closing on their home on Thursday, and their sales agent informs them that the agent and their broker will be out of town that day, but that the title company will take care of everything at the closing. Now, who by law is responsible for the accuracy of the settlement statements? Well, now we're not talking about a rule now. We're talking about the law. And is it the principal broker, A, or is it B, the sales agent, or the title company, C, or the listing agent? And of course, the answer, probably all of you know, is A, the principal broker, right? Yeah, that's right. So even though the broker's out of town, that doesn't mean he can't get they can't send the records to him wherever they are, and he can go over them before the closing, or they can get them to him a day or two before sometimes. Sometimes that's difficult, though, because the figures aren't figured out until the very last minute. But they, with the way the technology is today, he could actually attend the closing electronically if you wanted to. Now, the Division of Real Estate has changed the rules a little bit, in that we don't have to attend closings. But I would highly recommend you should go to every closing. It gives you a chance to, kind of finish up the transaction and bond with your client, whether they're the buyer, the seller, or perhaps both. But and also gives you a chance to ask for referrals, which you should do all the time, not just at closing. You should ask, anytime a buyer or seller is happy in a transaction, like they just went under contract, they just got their offer accepted, that's a great time to ask for a referral. Well, I can't ask for a referral, Roller, because, we haven't closed yet. No. They may not be happy when you're closed. Some little snafu came up that they're kind of angry about, and they'll settle down on that, or you'll help them, through that. But anytime someone's happy, it's a great time to ask for a referral. But correct answer to this one, who's responsible for the accuracy? It's the principal broker, which is A. Let's go to number 4, please. The right answer is going to be there, And if it is the question from heck, and you can't, you haven't a clue, just take your right index finger, rub it up and down that computer screen pretty fast. Pretty soon, one of those, between A through D, and pretty soon one of those will be hot because of friction, and that's the correct answer, 25% of the time. Number 4, K, a sales agent, just found out that their principal broker passed away. Sad. And they were a sole owner of the brokerage, meaning that the brokerage was not an entity. Now, when you say sole owner, that could mean a lot of things. But when you look at the question, they were the sole owner. What happens to the listing agreement that K had with his client? Now, K is an agent. K's broker passes away. Now, let's look at A. They're unaffected while K is still working on them. B, they're nullified. C, they're automatically assumed by the Division of Real Estate. Like what? Like the real estate division is going to come in and take over the responsibility of that sale? That's not going to happen. They're regulators, not operators. D, they are put on hold until K affiliates with the new broker. No, the correct answer to this one, folks, is quite simple. They're nullified. B. Now, this is an excellent question when you're out there interviewing companies to go to work for, because of the fact that if it is a sole ownership type structure that this broker chose to run his company with, and not an entity, a non-breather, you see what happens is as a sole owner broker, or even if you had a partnership, it really doesn't matter, but as the broker's license holder, you can lend that license and get a company license. And the company can be licensed as an LLC, or it can be a corporation. It can be a trust, a business trust. And so what happens is the company, that company doesn't die. I mean, the broker dies, but the company doesn't die. And since it was an entity, then your listing is not nullified. Now, you might think, well, what's the big deal? The big deal is when you have 8 listings and they were hard to get, and they're all going to sell, because you priced them right and whatnot. It just takes time to get them under contract, and which is another level, but when you have them and you're marketing them, if your broker dies and there's sole proprietorship, then you're out, you were out to lunch. You should have been working for an entity, because that way the division will allow a reasonable amount of time for a new breather broker to come in and take over the responsibility for that non-breathing entity. So that would be an intelligent question. I'm always impressed when an agent comes in, they're interviewing, and say, well, are you operating as an entity? Like an LLC, limited partnership, whatnot, or you're just a sole proprietorship type thing. And I'm impressed when someone asks a question like that. So if you want to impress your company you're thinking about going to work for, that's what you need to do. Let's look at number 5, please. Number 5 says if a principal broker's license is suspended or revoked, they didn't die, but they got in big trouble here. So they got suspended or they got revoked, then all the agent's licenses are what? Automatically inactivated, or inactivated after 30 days, remain active, or automatically revoked. Well, you didn't, now if you caused the problem, you may have been revoked also. But if you're just an innocent agent that's working for a broker that's having their license suspended or revoked for, something pretty bad, and they, then what happens to it? Well, are you automatically revoked also? I mean, are you guilty, just because you were associated there? No. Do you remain active? How can you remain active? There's no broker's license anymore. You're inactive after 30 days. You think they're going to let you? No. The answer to this one, folks, is A. You're automatically inactivated. Okay, which means you can't do anything. Okay, which also means that your listing is canceled. It's nullified, just like as if they had died, because there's no living, breathing broker right there. Now that means that other predatory agents out there, your competitors, are going to be knocking on those doors saying, hey, you're off, you're going to be out of the MLS, your broker's dead, or your broker is not dead, but they got revoked or suspended. So what will happen is, before this all happens, maybe your broker will get an associate broker to step up, someone who has a license, and kind of take over the company. So what they're going to do to pay their pittance to the real estate division. Go to number 6, please. It doesn't happen very often, but it could. Okay, and here we have a principal broker that collects interest or collects earnest money from a client, and they put the money in a trust account within 3 calendar days. And when would they be allowed to collect interest from the earnest money? Okay, or are they allowed to? Look at A, only if they have written permission from both buyer and seller. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Number B, only if they donate the interest to charity. Well, okay, that'd be nice, but that, I don't know. Look at C, only the client can collect interest from the earnest money in the trust account. It's not their bank account. Okay. D, only the real estate research and recovery fund collect interest. Well, the research and recovery fund is a real thing, but it's not tied into that brokerage. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at what? It's got to be what, guys? What's your best guess? If you're guessing A, you're right. Only if they have written permission from both the buyer and the seller. Okay. And we have an addendum for that, and it has the proper language on it, and you can definitely use that. With interest rates being as minuscule as they are today, it would have to be in a very significant amount of earnest money, maybe $500,000 or so, or 300,000 maybe, because with the fractional interest that you get on a savings account these days, a $5,000 deposit, for the period of time it's going to be there is not really going to be that much money. Let's look at number 7, please. So most brokers don't mess with interest, and they don't ask the buyer and seller to agree to that, but you could. And we do have documents that are specifically written for that purpose. Number 7, the terms trust or escrow must A, be used for only be used for commercial transactions. No, of course not. B, not used in contracts. Okay. C, be part of the account name where the broker keeps the client funds. In other words, it's on the bank account. So it'll say Hot Dog Realtors Trust Account. Okay. Or A or a D, always be on every check deposited. Well, the checks that they're depositing come from buyers. They don't come from the brokerage. So, what do you think, guys? Out of these, obviously, it's going to be number 7, C. C, be part of the account name where the broker keeps the client funds. So the account is readily identifiable by that. Now, when you're working with your bank, when you get to the point, and we do have broker clients in our school, and they're or they want to be broker clients. They are broker. I'm sorry, they're not a broker yet, but they're working on getting their broker's license. And so when you go set up your trust account, you want to be very clear with the bank that this money is not yours. It's money that's held in escrow, or it's going to be held in a trust account. Okay, so let's go to number 8, please. According to the rule, if a real estate transaction takes place in Utah, the earnest money, A, must be held by a title company. B, must be deposited in 1 business day. C, must be deposited in a Utah bank or credit union. D, must be deposited in a brokerage trust account. Okay. Now, the problem with the brokerage trust account is that you might think, well, hey, that sounds really good. Well, yeah, but the brokerage trust account is a bank account. Okay. What they're getting at in this question is, could you use your Miami, Florida bank account to hold your earnest money? And it's a Utah brokerage. It's a Utah transaction. And the answer to that is, heck no. We want the money kept in Utah, because that's the courts that have jurisdiction over this whole transaction. I mean, after all, yes, there's a number of federal laws that we have to abide by, but you have a state license issued by the state of Utah. And so they want the money to be deposited, as it says here in C, at a Utah bank or credit union. Okay, and that is the correct answer. So read the stem twice. The stem is the first part. That's the first part of the question. According to a rule, if the real estate transaction takes place in Utah, the earnest money must be deposited in a Utah bank or a credit union. Okay. Now, if you're a Utah broker and you're selling properties in Nevada, you better go get a Nevada license, because your Utah license doesn't allow you to sell properties in Nevada or Arizona or Colorado or any of our neighbors. Okay, we would have to get licensed in each one of those states, because you'll be governed by the borders. Like I said, real estate rules and regulations are state rules and regulations. And yes, we have some federal laws where we have to comply with, some federal mandates as well. But the license you have was issued by the state of Utah. So that should give you a clue. Number 9, if there is a deposit given for a construction project, that money cannot be used for anything except. Now, you have a lot of brokers who are also contractors, or I should say contractors who are also brokers. It could work either way, depending on what your main part of your business is. Examples are like Ivory Homes, one of our biggest builders and one of America's great home builders. And a lot of other builders that we have in Utah, who many of them decided that they wanted to own their own brokerage company as well, like Ivory did. And so they have their own sales staff and whatnot. And they're taking deposits. So it's kind of interesting because the same ownership is for the brokerage and for the construction, company, which is also which is the seller. So let's look at this. Let's look this over and let's kind of reason it out. The final sale of the completed project. Okay. Or it might be materials for construction that you can use this money for, or wages or upgrades. Now, B, C, and D are all part of the construction process here. The only one that probably really makes sense if you think about it is A. So this money that was given as a deposit was earnest money in regards to the sales portion of this whole event. And it's governed by Utah laws and regulations, like I've been hammering home in your head. So the correct answer to this one, obviously, is got to be A, okay? Because it is part of the sales process, which not the construction process. B, C, and D is part of the construction process. Well, what about the upgrades? Well, that's still offered by the builder. And they're probably two separate entities. So he probably has one entity for the building and contracting and one entity for the brokerage. And they can have similar names. That's not the point. But this is a very common question, and you may see it again sometime in the near future. Let's look at number 10, please. What should a licensee do if the buyer offers a post-dated check as earnest money deposit? Post-dated check. Post-dated check would be, today is, April 4th, and this check is going to be post-dated till April 25th or something, because that's part of their offer. Okay. So let's look at our potential answers here. A, explain that it is against the law for the agent to accept a post-dated check. B, accept the check and hold it until the date specified, then present the offer. In a hot market, it's not going to be there anymore. C, accept the check and note on the receipt that it is post-dated check. So mention that on the receipt for the check and also in the contract. D, refuse to accept the check and note in the receipt and say zero earnest money. That's not going to be very compelling. So of these guys, if you're leaning towards C, then your instincts are 100% on the money, because you can accept the check and note on the receipt that is a post-dated check, and I would definitely put it in the contract as well, so that's very clear. Okay. Now, sellers may not like this idea, and I don't blame them. They're taking your house off the market, and they really don't have anything to fall back on until that check clears. And if it's post-dated for any significant period of time, that's going to be a problem. It's a very unusual situation. You're probably not going to see it because it's not very compelling. When you write an offer, and you're trying to get something under contract, you want to make that offer as compelling as possible. You want to make it right for the buyer, but you want to make it right for the seller as well, or they're not going to accept it. And they've got to, and the majority of the time, there's going to be another agent on the other side of the deal. And the majority of the time, that agent probably is not in your office. So you have the same broker. It's probably another company. And, so they're going to have an agent, and the agent is going to say, this is a post-dated check. And, I don't know, that's not very compelling, and let's see if we can get a better offer. Now, recently, offers have calmed down a little bit, and we were throwing a property on the market and getting 5, 6, 10 offers on it. So that wouldn't be very compelling to have a post-dated check. Things have settled down a little bit now, and there's hot properties are still getting multiple offers, but some properties are not. And so what happens is, you might get it accepted, but probably not. It's just not compelling. But if you see this question, you know how to answer it. You accept the check and make note, and everyone agrees to the fact that it was a post-dated check. And the best way to do that is to put it on the receipt, but that for the check, but also that receipt could be part of the Rep C contract as well. It should be. Let's look at number 11, please. In
Got
distributing,
quite a group. Is there anybody that has questions or anything we can answer?
yeah, do we have any questions? Okay,
If any do come up, feel free to unmute or put them in the chat. We're happy to answer what we can.
great. That would be great. Guess we don't have any right at this moment, but let's look at number 11. In dispersing funds from the trust account, which of the following would violate the Utah real estate rules? Okay, so we're looking for something you shouldn't be doing. Okay, and let's kind of move through these. First, moving commissions earned from the trust account to the operating account. Now, the operating account is the broker's money, and moving the commissions from one account to the other is okay if it has closed. In fact, it's required, because the money that's in your trust account should only be other people's money. And once that deal closes, what happens is, let's say the earnest money is $5,000, but the commission is $20,000. Okay, so the title company is not going to write a $20,000 check to the broker and say, now give us that $5,000 out of your trust account. What they're going to do is they're going to say, here's a $15,000 check for your commission, and you already have $5,000 in your trust account. And, according to the contract, which we believe is true, and it better be. You don't lie. And so that's when the broker, at that moment, that money becomes the broker's money. Now, we're restricted on how much money you can keep in your trust account, if you're a broker. And like I said, we have brokers, students who are becoming brokers. So this is real important. You have to get that money out of the trust account, because that $5,000 has become your commission, because they only paid you 15 of the 20 that you were owed. Okay, and that's so. Don't leave it in there, because that's considered commingling. You commingled your money with monies that are in the trust account, and those monies are only supposed to be held in escrow or trust for other people. It's other people's money, but when it becomes yours, you need to get it out of there, and you need to get it out of there right away. So someone's got to be monitoring that account, make sure that happens. Brokers have gotten in serious trouble in Utah where they inadvertently left $1,000 or $2,000 or $10,000 in their account, and for a long period of time, and the division looks very harshly about that, because that money is your money, and you're restricted on the amount of money you can have that's yours in the trust account. So it should come out of there immediately. Let's look at number 12, please. Dispersing funds. That's a very fun part of this. Okay, because that's when you get your money. That's when you get your commission. Number 12, a licensed broker who is not acting as a branch broker or principal broker is called a what? An associate broker. B, a property management sales agent. C, an inactive broker. Or D, a broker in training. You're already a broker. You're not a broker in training, and you're not an inactive broker. If you're an inactive broker or an inactive agent, you wouldn't be selling real estate because you're inactive. You can put your license inactive if you want to, but you can't do anything. Well, I have a license, it's just inactive. Well, that means it's not valid at this moment. If you want to go sell real estate or put together a transaction, you better activate your license. And if you're a broker, that's, you have to get, open a trust account and jump through a couple of other hoops. But it's inactive licenses are great because you can act quickly to get active, but they don't really profit you, other than the fact that you still have to pay your renewal fees. When you renew, but the division kind of likes those, because you're an agent that can't do anything, can't get in any trouble, but you still are paying the fees. But the advantage of keeping your license on ice or inactive is that you can activate quickly. So I've had many people that have come through the school who went ahead, took the class, passed the test, and never activated their license. They paid the license fee and they became licensed, but they became licensed inactive, and they left it there. But it's because they're retiring in 5 months and they just had time to go to school now, and so when they retire, they're going to go active into business. Why not get that license and get ready and go, rather than retire and then have your month or whatever it's going to take you to go, or two, whatever it's going to take you to go through school and pass that examination. Why not do it when you can do it in your spare time, when you're doing something else, and then you're ready. So the correct answer to this is not a property management, not an inactive, and certainly not a broker in training. It is your associate broker. I'm an associate broker. I choose to work for a company where I'm not a branch broker and I'm not a principal broker, but I do have a broker's license. So really my status is the same as a sales agent, except that I don't have a sales license. I have a broker license. So they call me an associate broker, and you will be one too, hopefully someday. I think it's a natural kind of evolution in the business. I mean, you can't get a broker's license unless you've earned enough points and you had 3 years worth of experience. But when you get to that point, you ought to get a broker's license. Why not? Because if your broker needs someone to open a branch office, they might look to you. They're going to go through their roster and find out who's already with us that could, run that branch office, and that may open an opportunity for you. It might be something you want to do. We could always use the revenue here at the school. And it's just really nice to have a broker's license. And if you want to go sell in other states and get licensed in Montana, or perhaps you want to get licensed in Nevada or Arizona or California, it's easier to do that if you have a broker's license, because you are the broker and you can just move right into a broker's license. I had an opportunity this week to do some tutoring with a student who is going to be taking a test here sometime this week, and he had a broker's license in South Africa. So he was the first South African broker I've ever worked with. He was a delightful individual, and we're very happy to have him in Utah. He's actually moving here from South Africa because his family and grandchildren have decided this is a better place to settle. And it's interesting because the laws are quite different. And, I mean, you got to get out of that mode and get into the other mode. If you're in the States and you have a broker's license in one state, there will be some significant differences between one state and another. But they're very manageable. I mean, they're totally different from South Africa. So let's look at number 13, please. Okay, here we go. Number 13 says a brokerage sets up a temporary branch office in a model home. They're very common. A lot of times they remodel the garage and make it into a sales office, which is a good way to do it. As people enter, and that entrance into the model home, and you can get them registered and talk to them, and then you can take them through the model, or they can wander through on their own. But a brokerage sets up this temporary branch office. Okay. They do not need to register with the real estate division that their branch will be there for more than what? If they're going to be there for more than what? So in other words, it's okay for a broker to have physical offices, of course, and it's okay for them not to have physical offices too. Some people just want to work out of their homes, and that's fine, or they want to work out of other types of facilities. But this broker could have a branch office, so you have a physical location in more than one location. And the laws in Utah are such that the broker can manage those himself. He doesn't need another manager. But when you get, a few hundred agents, it gets a little unwieldy. And a lot of times they want someone. And besides, I mean, you might decide that you're mainly operating out of Salt Lake, but you get an opportunity to work for a builder who's building in a faraway location like Logan. Okay. And so they're going to put a model home up for you, and you're going to work out of that garage. But that's not a branch office unless you're going to be there for more than what? 12 months, 6 months, 1 month, or 18 months. Well, if you're leaning for the 12, that's it. Okay, it's 12 months. 1 month, that's a little short. I mean, that's okay. I mean, you're just going to be there for a month as you're selling out the last few homes in the subdivision. Or 6 months, fine. But if it's over 12 months, then they want you to register that as a legitimate branch office. It's just a little bit more paperwork. Okay. But the principal broker could run both. Or, I mean, if it's all the way down in Logan and you're in Salt Lake, you might want someone else to kind of run herd on the agents down there. And so you might want to set that up as a branch office and put a associate broker, or which would then become a branch manager. Okay. All the more reason to get your broker's license, even if you don't want to run an office now. You may change, that attitude later. Okay, let's look at number 14, please. Now, 14 says you must be licensed to represent others in property management. Yes or no? Well, A, if there's compensation involved. B, always. D, never. Always and never. Boy, they're kind of absolute terms there. D, if you're not related to them. Okay. In other words, well, I can run mom's property for her, can't I? No, they don't care if you're related or not. The thing that's important is compensation. If mom's paying you a percentage of the rents, or mom's even paying you to manage those properties, then you need to get a real estate license. Because that looks like you're being paid, and you are. And so then if you have to fall under all the regulations, okay? So you must be licensed to represent others in property management if there's compensation involved. Now, what if you're smart? Like I have a buddy that I actually co-wrote a book with that started out his real estate investing career with the duplex. And he lived in the basement, and he rented the top floors, and the top floors paid all the costs involved with owning that property. So he virtually lived free. Well, this is smart. Well, I don't want to live in a duplex. Well, yeah, but you might want to own a duplex, and it's a lot easier to get it if you're going to be living in it. And most lenders will give you a loan even if you intend to buy additional properties. But you've got to live there for a year. Most of them have a 1-year requirement, but that might be a good way to go. Your first house might want to be a fourplex, or it might want to be, for you in your future investment needs, a duplex or a triplex. The lending will be a little bit simpler, and they like it when you own or occupy. And but if you're going to be running a property for mom that you put her into, and it's a fourplex, duplex, or whatever it is, or even a single family, and there's compensation involved, you better get licensed. Okay. You must be licensed in Utah. Number 15, please. He manages the apartment complex where they live. They've been living there for several years now, and just recently were given property management duties by the owner. And this is cool because they get a lower rent, as their compensation for management, which is true. Well, A, P does not need a real estate license. B, P needs a real estate license. C, what they're doing is illegal. It's not illegal, it happens all the time. Or P, they have to be an attorney. Throw that one away. No, they don't need to be an attorney. And it's not illegal. The question is, you need a license or not. Now, if your compensation is lower rent, they're not paying you money, but they're just giving you, as a trade-off for free or lower rent, then you don't need a license, folks, for that. You're living there, you're running the property, and you don't need a license. So I guess if you move into mom's duplex and she says, oh, you can live there free as long as you take care of it and you handle the other tenant there, or it could be an apartment building, then you don't need a license. But if you're managing one of these new apartment complexes that they're building that have 200 units in it or plus, you better be getting a license. Okay. Unless your total compensation is free rent. And if you're doing that much work, that's not going to be the case. It's a big job, to manage something big like that. Well, that's the questions we were going to go through. Is anyone that's online at this time have any other questions about any topic? We're happy to talk to you about it right now. So chat in or unmute. Okay. If there's no questions, we're going to close for tonight. But I want to mention that there's a lot of people that are concerned about what the future is going to hold for real estate. And I want to make just a couple of comments on that. The market that we are in now, or entering into now, is much like the market I started with, back over 40, almost 46 years ago. And interest rates were much higher than they are currently. And we were in a little bit of a recession, and people were very concerned. And failure was not an option for me. I needed, I had a young family, and I had to make this work. And so I did, and actually became Rookie of the Year. That was in Grand Junction, Colorado, and we took off from there. This industry, this business, and this market we're entering into creates a lot of opportunity. And the market that we have been in, where you can get out your crayons and write on it and put a sign in the window that says for sale, and by the weekend you have 3 offers, because many people want it, and there's a shortage of properties. Hasn't changed that much, but on the other hand, people are a little bit more fearful right now, and so the sellers and buyers are going to agents, because this is when they perceive they need an agent. So the opportunity is phenomenal for you to get in and make this work for you. But it's going to take work. And it's going to take not just work, but smart work. You need to know what you're doing. And we give you some of that at the school. But the practical aspects of making this business work for you, we don't get into it in any real depth. So choose wisely when you're choosing your first broker. I often say you only have one chance to choose your first broker. And sometimes they'll promise you the moon and the stars and tell you how wonderful their training program is, but when you get there, the moon and the stars are not delivered, and your training program was merely a series of different vendors coming and doing their song and dance and asking you to, hey, you should use us for your property inspections, or you should use us for your loans, or you should use us for your rehab, or whatever it might be. And you'll learn some things from that, but you won't learn the nuts and bolts that you really need to learn. So go with a company that has a great training program. Okay, Daniel, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry. I'm not sure if it might apply here or not, but I actually was very curious as to how the commission will work on an agent if you do some type of seller finance or wraparound mortgage
Okay.
loan.
Seller finance is the type of loan that you use to buy that the buyer's using to buy the property. The only way you're going to get your commission, of course, is that it's going to be charged on the settlement sheet as a closing cost. So even though the seller is doing seller finance, if you want to get paid your commission, there needs to be a significant amount of money coming from the buyer, not 100% financing, but a significant amount of money coming in at least to cover your commission and the closing cost. There's cost to close. I mean, your cost is just one of them. It's one of the bigger costs to close, but there's also going to be perhaps title insurance and recording fees and other types of expenses to get this property closed. So when I'm doing seller financing, that's just a type of financing. I mean, was it VA, FHA, conventional loan, or seller financing? It doesn't make any difference. The fees still have to be paid to close the deal, and you want to make sure that your commission is one of those things, unless you want to take the commission on a note and get paid some sort of monthly fee or whatever. But that's an excellent question. But I've done lots of seller financing deals, and I've always gotten paid. The buyers just have to come up with the money, or if the buyer doesn't have the money, the seller's got to pay out of pocket. I mean, after all, you did get the property sold. So, but that's how it works.
So would it
Excellent question.
apply the same, like if you're doing a wraparound mortgage, like would you get paid on the
Wraparound
closing
is
costs
another
with
way of
like
making financing the house. Okay. And
uh-huh.
wraparounds are an excellent opportunity in this market, because the underlying loan is at probably going to be at a much more compelling rate. It might be 4% or less. And so if you're doing a wraparound mortgage, you might be able to get that buyer, to pay 6 or 6.5 or 7 or 8% something. And so the seller who's doing that wraparound, you would wrap the whole loan. Some of their equity still may be there, and so they're going to make their 8% on that equity. But if it's a 4% underlying loan, they're going to make the difference between the 8% they're getting on their wrap and the 4% that's on, probably the majority of the financing on that property. Don't confuse the financing with the sales transaction. I mean, the sales transactions, because you're going to have settlement sheets, you're going to have paperwork to do, and you're going to have a broker to pay. But the financing, most properties have financing, and unless you're selling a lot of stuff in Park City where everyone pays cash, cash deals work too. But yeah, just make sure there's enough money in there to get everyone paid, including the title company and yourself and whatnot.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. And let me give you my phone number, 801-556-8000. 801-556-8000. That's my cell phone. And it rings, I answer it. And if you have any questions about something that comes up later, I'm happy to take your calls and work with you. Like this gentleman from South Africa. He wasn't even a student in our school, but he found these videos that we're making and putting on the web, and got acquainted with us, and he found my phone number, just like it's on the screen here, and called me, and I've met with him twice now in helping him get ready for the exam, and it's a privilege to do so. So don't be fearful about calling for help. However, it is totally inappropriate to call me during the exam itself, okay? You'll get us both in trouble. Well, thanks for being here tonight. Any other questions? Well, seeing none, we're gonna close. Guys, if you want this to happen for you, you can make it happen. And the market we're entering into is going to be filled with opportunity, because the property values have gone up to the point where you got to be very careful about getting an appropriate rate of return if you're an investor. But if the property values come down a little bit, all of a sudden, because of the fact that, the market's a little slower perhaps, or the interest rates are a little higher, or people are fearful about this or that, then that makes a phenomenal opportunity. Not only do we have people that need a house to live in, but it becomes an opportunity for people that want to buy investment properties. And in my, one of the ways I made Rookie of the Year was, I didn't do one-off transactions. I would take a buyer and he'd buy one thing, and I said, well, now you need some investment properties. He says, you're probably right. And I'd sell them a lot, or they wanted to buy and keep and hold on to, maybe build a house on eventually, or I'd sell them a duplex, or I'd sell them another house that he could rent out. Do multiple transactions, and of course get referrals. And when should you ask for referrals? Anytime the guy is happy. Anytime your buyers are happy, ask them for a referral. Okay, thank you. And 2 weeks from now, September 12th, we'll have another class. But in the interim, don't be shy. If you need help, call. We're here. Thanks for being here tonight. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Rick. If anybody wants to review any of the recordings of our previous classes, they're also available on our YouTube channel. You can find them on the school website.
Good luck, Scott, on the 6th. Call us when you pass, too. We get excited to get those calls. See you later out there, folks. Don't be a stranger.